Hi, I'm Sherman Rowland with Highland Park, and I'm going to talk to you about how to put the spray guard on the back of your shaping machine. Bring the camera around here so they can see. There should be a little flap that goes here, and there's also a plate that goes in here. And on your machine, those were not shipped out, and we've now got that as a QA check sheet. So this is the spray guard that you will have received, or will receive momentarily. You'll note there's 4 screws in there. These are M6, so they're metric screws, so they're not a 1/4-20, so don't try to, use a 1/4-20 tap. What I'm going to do is lift the head up. I'm going to put a block of wood just so I can get to this. And what I'll be doing is just basically taking this flap and screwing these screws into the holes back here, putting it in place. With this flap, this keeps the oil from flying around inside, and there's a little hole you'll see back here where this tube is that goes to the bottom. This is where the electronics and power come to the head. Without the flap, the oil travels right down there, gets in the belt and everything else. Won't really hurt anything other than just making a big mess and making your belt go real soggy. But installing this is pretty straightforward. All I'm doing is I'm just screwing the flap into these holes. These holes, you note on the outside, they're done on an angle because the way they tap them is tapped on an angle. So don't try to thread them in straight. You'll actually note that my wrench is on an angle here because they're actually tapped in on an angle. So put the bolts in on an angle. Installed this vinyl spray shield here. Now this will wear out over time, and just put another one in. It's just a piece of vinyl. I cut some slots for these 2 screw holes because I wanted it to fit across the back. So sometimes there's some variability here, so we try to make these work pretty well, but you may need to slot that hole in order to have it go to the back. Then we're going to put the other guard in that you've received, and that actually is the front guard. Don't worry if this kind of pulls a little bit, it's supposed to do that. There we go. So that's the little flap. Then the front guard is this little piece of metal, and you can bend this to angle. Basically, this just pops right in here. It sits in front, and what that does is that keeps spray from coming in the front of your saw. So you can see that greatly reduces the spraying that will happen with the oil. So install those 2 pieces. The problem with your oil will go away. Now, to replace the belt's a little bit of a pain to replace, but not too difficult. You'll notice that on the side here, where the belt is, your main arbor is right here. You need to loosen, actually take off these 2 bolts, loosen these 2 bolts to drop that arbor down enough so that you can get the belt in above it, your new belt in it. And what I suggest doing is putting the belt here, and then you generally don't need to move the motor to just kind of get the belt on there. If it's too tight and you can't work it over the pulley, then loosen the motor up to put the belt on and then set the motor back down. But you will need to loosen these. And then when you reattach this, just make sure that you keep it in the same position. You'll also note underneath here, there is a washer that is a shim underneath the deck. You want to keep that shim. That's underneath here. There's a shim because that arbor angle can change. So this is shimmed underneath there to have the arbor be straight. So you want to make sure that you do not remove those washers that are on top of the arbor. And that's it. Call us if you got questions.